Okay, so structured succession planning frameworks. So I want to talk about a couple of key components. I'm just curious, again, and I'm going to have you guys raise your hands and participate because it's more fun for me, just to be really honest with you, is if you help me that way. And so how many of you guys have some sort of formal succession planning? It's something written, something you guys can look at. Is there anybody in the room who has something that you feel real confident in? Awesome. So there's a really good reason why I'm up here today, right? Okay, you guys have some. Yes, okay, perfect. So what I want to talk about is some key components. Every plan for every organization, for every team that I've built this for is completely different. So please take these as frameworks and structures and things that you can do to help implement it. But I mentioned it down here, it has to be customized because every industry and every business is different, right? And so how it can look for your organization might look different than someone else's, but we're going to talk about some different pieces there. Okay, so this is my succession planning toolkit, or just a little framework with it. And so we're going to spend some time camped out on this slide for a little bit because I want to make sure that I go through each area and it really kind of hits and makes sense. So the first one is something that we've kind of touched on a little bit already, which is that assess phase. Who do you have in your organization? What talents do they have? I'm a big Clifton Strengths guy personally. I like to do a lot of team mapping. So whatever assessment tool that you have, pretty much any of them can do this, where you're able to map and see it specifically for your leadership team. Maybe you're looking specifically for a site or location, or overall for your whole organization. What does it really look like? And I kind of call it that ground truth of what we have when it comes to talent. We want to be able to measure that. One big example, I work with a credit union out in New York, and this credit union was like, Michael, we want to kind of take a snapshot of where we're at. We think we know, but we're not quite sure, and they are incredibly, incredibly strong in two areas. Relationships, which makes sense, right? They're serving members, that's a big part of what they do, and they're really, really strong in executing, like just getting things done. There's two areas that they're not super strong in, and this helped us to really be able to help them and look at their next level growth as well, is they struggle a bit with some of the bigger picture pieces as a team, kind of looking ahead and forecasting through some of that. So they didn't have a succession plan or a strategic plan or anything set yet. And then the second piece was they really struggled with some of the influence pieces or even helping move through conflict. Were two areas that we identified. And so by knowing that, we were able to actually help build some of that out to say, hey, one of their next level leaders that we're developing right now, because their current CEO is going to retire in about 2 years, she said, I really want this next level leader ready. And how many of you guys have that or have had that in your organization where you have maybe a top level leader, you have somebody really critical in a really key role that you're like, we need to get this person ready? Well, what does that look like? What does it actually look like? Well, if you don't go through the assess phase, then you're going to kind of say that of like, we want to get this person ready, or we need to get some people ready and get some options. But we really have to make sure that we know exactly what readiness looks like. And we'll dive into that a little bit more in a moment. But the assess phase really helped us say, oh, okay, overall for the organization, here's where we're at, some strengths and weaknesses. But also we were able to say, okay, how can we help the leader be able to embrace that and be able to know that at a deeper level. So that's the first one there. The second one is build. So really making sure that we have a set plan in place that's something that is a living, breathing document. Right? You guys deal with so much in compliance and obviously the different areas. We heard that this morning for a bit as well. And I think it's really important to have a plan that it can be looked at least once a month, that's visible, that is transparent, especially to the leadership organization or to the leadership level. Once you have that, then you can really start benchmarking and saying, okay, where are we at for our growth? Where are we at for each one of these areas? And where are we at with our organization and making sure that that's in place? And the best way to do that is to know every single job description like we know and have all those different areas, but also what does great performance look like? And when we benchmark that, a lot of times we have leaders or we have people who want to grow into next level positions, but if we don't have the real set scorecard of, hey, here's what they need to be doing every day, every week, every month, every year, whatever that can look like for your organization, If they don't know what success looks like, then a lot of times what they're going to do is two things that can happen. They may not know what success is, and they may kind of feel like there's a carrot kind of being hung out there of, maybe having future growth in your organization, but they don't really know what that is. It's not really defined. They don't have a timeline. So when that happens, then sometimes there's another opportunity that seems like it's a little bit greener grass. Seems like it's, well, this company will pay me a little bit more. This company will allow me to grow into this next level position. And really good people leave because they don't have something concrete for them to see, right? I see that actually time and time again. Really good people who really didn't necessarily want to leave, but they didn't know what kind of the game plan was for over the next 18, 24, 36 months. And they didn't have a real set plan on how they were growing professionally. And so when they don't have that development plan as part of the succession plan, then it's really hard for them to catch that vision and stay engaged and stay focused, and sometimes really stay there. So that's one of them. The second one sometimes is if you don't have a real clear benchmark, then they don't know what success looks like. And I would argue that most of the time, well, I'll tell you what I've never heard. I've never heard from anybody that I've worked with or companies that I've worked with that said, you know what, Michael, the reason that I left that other place is because I was celebrated too much. Yeah, that's right. They valued me so much, it was ridiculous. It was stifling, really. It just was over the top, right? Nobody says that, right? Great people leave because they don't feel valued. They don't feel like they're being understood, right? Many times, not all the time, but many times. And so if we can help instill that value, and I know for a fact that a lot of times employers do value people at a really high level, but we have to make sure that it's really clearly marked and they know what the scorecard is for success and they know that they're progressing. And if they have that, then there's just a higher likelihood of them staying and growing and being developed. So that's that fourth one, is develop. So what does it actually look like? How can they actually grow? And I think that was mentioned earlier of we can throw trainings at people, right? We can have them go to conferences. We can do all these great things. I mean, none of those things are bad in and of themselves. Some of them can be really helpful. But does it really help them bloom where they're planted? Does it really help them grow in their current role? Does it help them be the best that they can be over the next 6 months? Do they have a really set plan for the next 90 days for them to be an even better version of themselves? And sometimes that element gets missed, and we confuse trainings and conferences and different things for development that don't necessarily make lasting change for them. So what does it look like on that side? What does it look like for them to grow in their current role? What does it look like for them to grow as a leader? What are some results that we can point to that really help them to make that difference? And then the last part is just forecasting. So I've touched on it a little bit, but we need to be proactive when it comes to succession planning instead of reactive. How many of you guys have had a sudden departure and you're like, oh my gosh, we were not ready for that, right? It was not planned. You just didn't know. And we can't plan for every eventuality, but what we can do is forecast and say, who do we have on our bench? Who's up and ready? Who's next? And if we don't have anybody, what are we doing to develop that and have some specific timelines for that as well? So we're going to dive into that a little bit more in a moment. So talking about implementing your succession plan. So the best practices for rollout and integration we're going to talk about. We're also going to talk about some common pitfalls and just how to avoid them. So I'm going to do that with a case study. So I have credit unions, obviously, in my background, and so about half my clients are credit unions. So one Detroit credit union I had come to me about 2 years ago, and Hank, their CEO, has been with them for 33 years. That doesn't happen very often, right? I mean, that's pretty impressive. They've had a lot of growth and a lot of performance, and he said, Michael, we don't have anybody up next. And I'm actually kind of afraid to bring in somebody from the outside who doesn't get us. Who doesn't get our culture. The team might not actually want to receive them, and this is my legacy. I've done all of this great stuff, but at the end of the day, if I don't bring in somebody great that the board can approve, I feel like I'm going to fail. So he's just real open and honest, right? This is a big change for him. So we started focusing on, what could it look like? And he, first off, decided to hire 2 positions. We had a departure of one of their executive team leaders, And so he said, you know what I want to do? I want to hire people that I know could take my role. I want to hire people that are at a level that I feel confident that fast forwarding, in 2 years, I guess it's a year and a half, that I would be confident to place them in front of the board and they could be really great candidates for this job. So we dove deep into assessments. We dove deep into the interviews. I think they interviewed maybe 4 or 5 times in different avenues with different people. And we hired for talent. We did pay for it as well, right? Because you have to pay for talent. But it wasn't just to fill a role in what they needed currently. It was helping them see, we need to hire people with a vision of him retiring in about a year and a half. And if both of them don't work out, then of course we'll look to the outside and we'll make that difference, or we'll go down that road. But they both did work out, which is great. So we had 2 amazing candidates, and then we went through the process of helping them grow during that season. And anytime you have somebody at a higher level, especially C-suite, and you're working through kind of like what can they get it? Can they get the role? Can they have the right culture? Can they help with the team? We needed to build out their 90-day plan first to really make sure that they were grabbing onto what they needed to be able to do to be successful. And so then fast forwarding just a little bit into this last summer, the announcement was made that Hank was going to officially step away and retire at the end of this year. And we had done a lot of work together, specifically in coaching these guys. And the comment that they both made, because sometimes it's a little bit more of a challenge when you have 2 people internally applying for the same position, right? Sometimes that can be a bit of a challenge. They both said, hey, we feel more ready now for this next level position if we're able to get it than we would have a year and a half ago. And we feel confident that whichever one of us gets it, that the credit union is going to actually be led in a really powerful way. And we're excited for whoever gets it. And so they made the decision. Portia is her name. She ended up becoming the CEO here just last month. And what was really neat to see with that whole piece and case study is everybody involved felt like there was a lot of care, number one, in the process, but everybody felt really equipped for the next piece that was going to come. Hank felt more equipped because he felt like, man, I had 2 great people. One of them that was selected, she's a great choice, and she's going to be able to lead the credit union for the next 33 years. The other individual who wasn't selected felt really supported. He was like, man, I've been given everything I could ask for. I didn't get the role, but I can see why I didn't get the role, because we worked through some of the specific pieces of things he needs to now work on to help be at that next level if he wants to decide to do that, even with another organization. But he really wants to stay and grow with his current organization. And so we were able to work through that framework, and it was so powerful because a lot of times when this happens, people can get their feelings hurt, you can have great people leave, you can not be ready for a transition like that. But by doing it the right way, you can make it such a difference for everybody involved. And probably the biggest piece, I would say, would be the team members. Those folks didn't quite know who was going to, be the next person. None of us really did. But what was really powerful about it is that they actually had a plan that they knew that everybody was working through. And in this case, the board of directors was able to say, guys, this is the process that we're going through, and we're just going to be real transparent, and this is the time frame that we're looking at. And it made a big difference for them specifically.